I think one of the biggest obstacles to getting better are actually these folks. These nice people in nice sweaters who tell you kindly, with love in their heart, to knock off the bullshit and get back to being a cog in the machine of capitalism. And before you get all up in arms, like I said in the disclaimer, I think there are good therapists out there. It just might take a few tries to find one, which I know sucks because when you feel like shit, the last thing you want to do is play phone tag with Cheryl. Hello, I have a gaping hole in my soul that weighs on me with the density of 1,000 dying suns. I was wondering if Cheryl had any appointments next week.
Please call 414-555-6969 to make appointments. Cheryl.
You know what? On second thought, I'll just fucking die. If you can get over the initial shame of booking an appointment, you're then faced with a whole new problem. You, this emotional, vulnerable, delicate, wounded little animal, are stuffed into a 200 square foot room with some random psycho.
Here's Johnny.
I had this one guy who started playing the accordion during my session, and he wasn't even the worst one, if I'm being honest. The problem is you don't know to what degree these people care about their job. Like, if it were me, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be pretty checked out by like 2 p.m. If I'm seeing you at 4:30 p.m., I'm probably going to be thinking about going back to my 2-bedroom apartment and DoorDashing the steamed rice from China Dragon Restaurant. Oh, how I love the tastes of Asia. And of course, I'm exaggerating. The vast majority of therapists are baseline competent at their jobs. They'll give you coping mechanisms, try to help you break down thought patterns. They might even give you a book recommendation if they're at least only halfway shitty at their job. Give me a podcast to listen to. Something. Okay, show me that you're staying up to date on the current conversation around mental health. Cheryl. Understandably, doctors aren't going to prescribe you 10,000 milligrams of lithium on your first visit. They tend to take more of a conservative approach. And that's fine. I understand that. I just don't think it's the most helpful approach for a lot of people. I think sometimes therapists might assume that people walking through the door are just beginning to feel the initial feelings of sadness. They've dipped their toe into depression lake and following some hypochondrial frenzy, they've convinced themselves they need therapy. I'm not saying the patient is going to know exactly what's going on with them, but maybe get a little more curious about it instead of just slapping a label on people and kicking them out the door. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm going to guess that most people that seek therapy are in a bit of a crisis. So much so that they may be faced with a choice. Either I can seek help and try to get better, or, well, YouTube won't let us talk about the other option, but suffice it to say, these people are hanging on by a thread. And they're going into these therapy sessions thinking, how do I show that I'm in a crisis and not get my experience invalidated by this person who might just tell me to take 2 Tylenol and go to bed earlier? I don't know if everyone's going to be able to relate to this feeling, but sometimes when you've been punched in the face 1,000 times, you just don't really have it in you to take punch 1001. Like, you feel like your next punch might be your last, and it might not be true, but that's kind of how you feel, and so you avoid everything, and just any situation where you could possibly be punched, you just don't fucking go there, and then you don't end up going to therapy and seeking help, and shit just gets worse, and that's not the outcome that we're looking for, right? I know that it might sound over dramatic if you've never had that feeling of despair before, but I think it's just important to acknowledge that there are a lot of people out there as we speak who are in a real state of crisis. We pretend like that's not the case as a diverse cast of TV anchors who all talk exactly the same, tell us that everything's going to be fine, but times are tough. We have inflation, housing crisis, fucking genocide. People are trying to decide if they can afford to have kids, which if they don't, in 2 generations, we're not going to have enough workers to keep the system going and capitalism will literally devour itself. Times are a little bleak, and I think some people are affected by it more than others. I'm not putting a value judgment on that. I'm not saying people who are more sensitive are bad. I'm not saying the people who are less sensitive are bad, although they do tend to come from a similar tax bracket. Feel however you want to feel about mentally ill people. The bottom line is they're people and they're having a bad time, and we should try to construct a system that actually helps them get better. All right? Can we fucking agree on that? All you critics who are going to demolish me in the comments.
Yar, matey. I'll take on all comers.
If you're like me, you probably rehearse your lines before you go in there. My brain hurts. I can't sleep. I think about death constantly. My brain hurts. I can't sleep. I think about death constantly. My brain hurts. I can't sleep. And I think about death constantly. And then you go in the office and Cheryl's like, how's it going? And you're like, good. Fuck, I blew it. No mentally ill person should have to play up their mental illness for the cameras in order to get the care that they need. A therapist should accept a person's lived experience as valid, but unfortunately, all too often, that's not the case. The amount of horror stories I've heard about mental health professionals downplaying or downright dismissing the lived experience of their patients are enough to fill up a Stephen King anthology. Like, I know you have a framed piece of paper on your wall that makes you think that you're God, but you're not. You're just a human like the rest of us, just trying to figure it out. And if you act like you know everything, in my opinion, you're doing a disservice probably to your clients, maybe. So yeah, therapists, be better. Also, simultaneously, at the same time, in the therapist's defense, there is a big problem that I'm completely overlooking, which is that it's hard to communicate your feelings, especially to a complete stranger. A lot of us end up people pleasing or downplaying what we're going through because we want the therapist to like us, or maybe we just have two very different communication styles and it's just not a good fit. Like if I'm trying to explain some shit to you and you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's not good. We don't like that. The patient wants to be heard. The therapist, if they're being honest, probably feels more comfortable talking to someone they can see as a kind of a younger version of themselves, you know, birds of a feather. Like, I think I would make a good therapist for another autistic guy in recovery. But if I was talking to an athlete struggling with the pressures of being the team captain, what the fuck am I going to say to that kid, you know? Yeah, man, just go out there and give it 110%. Even if you do find a good match, it can be difficult to find the words to describe your internal world. Like, language is very limiting. Take psychedelics, for example. People will describe their experience as profound or life-changing, but those words are clunky and vague and don't accurately represent what's happening in our neural pathways. The part of our brain that experiences deep feelings, the amygdala, is separate from the part of our brain that controls language. This means there's an internal process happening every time we attempt to put feelings to words. Those feelings are being interpreted, once by the speaker and then again by the receiver. What results is this bizarre telephone game where nobody understands each other and most people don't even understand themselves. Trying to communicate with anyone is difficult. Trying to communicate in a way that helps someone solve their problems is a completely different battle. I understand that being a therapist is emotionally taxing on a level that basically no other profession is equipped to handle, and you guys are literally the glue that holds society together. Okay, therapists, I'm sorry. I was a little harsh earlier. We're on the same team. We're on the same wavelength. I'm just trying to express some of the frustrations from the patient's point of view, okay? I'm acting, but you have to be careful because if you put on too good of a performance, you might win an all-expenses-paid grippy sock vacation.
I told myself I'd never go back.
The process is a little humiliating, especially when they strip search you and take away your shoelaces. Who is the asshole who ruined shoelaces for the rest of us, right? Like now I'm not allowed to have an elastic waistband in my pants. So now I just have 2 pairs of pants with no waistband, because once you take that shit out, it doesn't go back in. It doesn't go back in unless you're some kind of wizard. Every day they made us fill out these progress report sheets, rate your depression from 1 to 10 type shit. And if you put an 8, they would really put you on the spot in group therapy. Like they would kind of make the whole session about you and what you need to do to fix your problems. And while some of that advice is great and super helpful and cool and very valid, some people's nervous systems just can't handle being the center of attention over and over again. So the next day, they're just going to mark a 2 because they don't want to have to go through that again. Because sometimes when a person is putting pressure on you to get better, you pretend to get better because you don't want to hurt their feelings or rock the boat. You just go along with the program. If you're detoxing from a drug, that's a completely different animal. I have not had that experience in my life, so that might be one of my blind spots here. Feel free to leave your comment about your experience and tell me why I'm wrong. That's fine. And look, if you had a good experience enrolling at your local crazy college, I'm happy for you. And I understand why this video is annoying, but the facts are clear. The average success rate at treating mental disorders in general is 38% depression, 36% anxiety, 31%. I think we can all agree that those numbers are not ideal. Yet, even if someone's not actually being helped by the program, most people don't want to be the emo kid in class marking an 8 every day. So in an effort to people please, they downplay their feelings for the sake of the group, thus continuing the cycle they've been stuck in for 30 years, never allowing themselves enough space to actually feel their feelings, also known as masking. High school called. They want their coping mechanism back. If you have my kind of personality, first of all, I'm so sorry. But second of all, you're probably going to find the mental hospital pretty counterproductive if you're sort of a neurotic overthinker who has trouble in group environments. May not be for you. There's a real coercion baked into those progress sheets. Every single day they're asking you, are you getting better? Are you getting better? Are you getting better? And eventually you just go, yeah, you know what? Actually, I am. I'm feeling a lot better. And I'd like to go home now, please. And they go,
we'll see how you do on the medication.
And the medication makes you feel like you have rocks in your brain, but you don't care about that because your fight or flight instinct is completely switched on and it's been 3 days and you're trying to get the fuck out of there. We had this music therapy class, and at the beginning of the class, the lady asks you to rate your depression on a scale of 1 to 10, rate your anxiety on a scale of 1 to 10, and then she sits down with this guitar, and we proceed to write the worst, most cringiest, horrifying song I have ever encountered in all my days. And no, I don't want a copy of it to take home. I'm throwing that shit directly in the trash out of embarrassment towards the human race. And then at the end of the session, they're like, okay, how's your depression now? It's a 2, actually. It's I've been cured by the power of music. Can I go home now, please? We've been doing a lot of performing in this video, and part of me feels like it might have something to do with those pesky insurance companies. These corporations make therapists jump through hoops to prove that their therapy is effective. It's a kind of play that we put on for the insurance companies so they keep paying for the stage. If therapy wasn't subsidized by the insurance industry, there's no way most people could afford to pay $150 out of pocket every week. We're kind of collectively at the will of these billionaires. That sure does sound familiar. There's a real pressure to get better, and I think that's because our corporate overlords want to invest in a program that works. Real profit-generating loony bins with pristine facilities and only the highest quality fine dining. Bon appetit. Okay, I'm talking to the people who control the medical health industrial complex now. Everybody else, you don't have to listen. You can go to bed. When you don't meet people where they are, they retreat more into the darkness. It creates this sort of invalidation death spiral where you just feel like nothing is ever going to get better until it gets worse. And then before you know it, you end up in diet jail, in the mini jail junior with cheese. This is a shitty system. So how do we fix it? There are people out there way smarter than me trying to figure it out. But I think it starts with believing people's lived experience and helping them build a better future that makes sense for their specific brain, as opposed to gaslighting them into following a one-size-fits-all program that does a pretty good job profiting off their misery, but not a very good job ending it. And that's where we're going to end today's video. Goodbye. I'm out here doing some pirate shit. I'm doing a pirate bit that nobody asked for, nobody wanted. People didn't really, it wasn't even that worth it, honestly. Wasn't even that worth it.
But if you say that, I'll kill you.